Chapter 1, Episode 4. Title: Is Death a Calamity? People think that death is a tragedy. It is not. People living their entire lives without experiencing life is a tragedy. If you die, there is really no tragedy. That is the end of whatever problems you are experiencing in life. But if you are alive and not experiencing life in its totality, that is a true tragedy. Sanskrit verse. It says, Jananam Sukhadam Maranam Karunam. Jananam means birth or life. It says life is a pleasure or joy. This is so. If you learn to handle your body and mind properly, your experience of life will be a pleasure or joy. But Maranam or death is Karunam or compassion. Death is compassion because it relieves you. Right now, people have a distorted orientation of life. They don't want to die. They don't realize that if you were ever condemned to become immortal, or if death were taken away from you, it would be the most horrible thing to happen to you. However beautiful your life becomes, if death comes at the right time to you, you are very fortunate. If it comes late, if life stretches itself beyond a certain point, that will be the worst kind of suffering. Then you will find that when death comes, it will be a great relief. Life needs a certain amount of tension to keep it going, but in death, there is relaxation. In fact, death is the highest relaxation. However, if you also know the relaxation of death when you are alive, then life becomes an utterly effortless process. If we look at life and death as a happening in terms of your experience, your inhalation is life and your exhalation is death. You can experiment with this. Take one big inhalation and see how your body and your mind are. Now do one big exhalation and see how your body and mind are. Which do you find is more relaxing? In fact, whenever tension builds up in you, the natural mechanism in the body wants to exhale. This is what you call a sigh. It relaxes you a little bit. Life needs a certain tension. Otherwise, you cannot keep it going. Death is utter relaxation. This is how it would have naturally been if your mind had not banished death as evil. If your traditions and cultures had not taught you that death is evil, or a calamity that should be avoided, believe me, you would breathe in a completely different way. If you observe people around you right now, you will see that for almost 99% of the people, their exhalation is never complete. Their mind has rejected death, so their exhalation will not happen totally. They will inhale, but exhalation does not happen totally. This is one of the reasons why, over some time, you build up so much tension within the system that it is reaching a breaking point, both mentally and physiologically. The greatest calamity of the human mind is that it is against death. The moment you reject death, you also reject life. You think life is right and death is wrong. It is not so. Life is what it is only because death is. A river always happens between two banks. But you are standing on the right bank and say, I don't like the left bank, it should disappear. If the left bank disappears, the river also will disappear, the right bank also will disappear. If the right bank has to be there, the left bank also has to be there. It is like, could there be light without darkness? One who does not embrace death will not know life at all. If you sit here saying, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, all that will happen is you will not live. You will anyway die, but by denying death, you will not live well until then either. If you are afraid of death, you will only avoid life, you cannot avoid death. Even now, in some cultures, death is held as something that is to be celebrated, not mourned. After all, from somewhere you got released into this planet within this atmospheric space. Within that, however large a space you occupy, it is still a small prison. But death is an endless possibility. So there must be much more joy, much more of a sense of excitement about this than birth. For someone who is aware of this possibility, there is no such thing as life and death. Life is death, and death is life, they are not different. Death is in fact life in a very intense form. People who have experienced moments of great danger in their life clearly know this. It once happened. Two old men met in a tiny little town in Indiana, USA, in a local bar. And both of them were sitting grumpily at two different tables and drinking. Then one guy looked at the other and saw a birthmark on the other person's temple. So he walked up to him and said, "Hey, is that you, Joshua?" "Yeah, who are you?" "Don't you recognize me?" "I am Mark. We were in the war together." He said, "Oh my God." And they lit up suddenly. They were together in World War II and it had been 50 years since then. So they sat down at one table and started drinking, talking and eating. They had seen about 40 minutes of action in those treacherous trenches of World War II in Europe. 40 minutes of vivid blitz. They talked about those 40 minutes in so many ways, one guy for over 2 hours. After they were done with all this talk, one guy asked the other, "What have you been doing since then?" He said, I have just been a salesman." 40 minutes of war. They spoke for 2 hours with great excitement. But 50 years of life after that were just summed up as, "I've just been a salesman." That is how it happens. Moments of danger are moments when you experience both life and death together at the same time. These are the moments you realize that life and death are here at the same time. They are not two separate things. They are one inside the other. Life is all packed like this. The creation and the creator, life and death are all packed one inside the other. It takes attention, a lot of attention, to see it. Otherwise, one just lives on the surface, half alive. If you don't know life and death at the same time, you will know only one half of life. Being half alive is a torture always. If you want to live as a full life, you should look at your mortal nature every day, not only when you are beyond a certain age. Every day of your life, you need to be aware that you are mortal. It is not that I want to die today, but if I do, it is all right with me. I will do everything to protect myself, to nurture myself, to take care of myself. But if I have to die today, it is okay with me. Only then can I step out and live. Otherwise, I cannot live.